Comair Flight 5191.
Minor things that added up to this tragic situation.
And 700 WLW aviation expert Jay Ratliff says one of those, factoring into Flight 5191's tragic equation, may have been a missing advisory, alerting the crew the normal taxiway to the main runway was closed.
The thought being that had the crew gotten that information, that they would have not turned down the taxiway that was closed. And because of that, they would not have been as confused as they were that morning.
Investigators say flight data recordings show the pilots thought they were on the right runway, but Flight 5191 ended up on a shorter runway. The plane crashed during takeoff, killing 49 people aboard. Only the pilot, James Polhinky, survived.
He doesn't have any memories of that morning, so unfortunately he will not be able to offer any meaningful testimony as far as what took place leading up to the event of the crash.
But Ratliff says other factors probably played a part. Investigators say the crew started out by getting on the wrong jet that morning. Investigators also found only one air traffic controller was in the tower, instead of the two required.
On August 27, 2006, about 06:06:35 Eastern Daylight Time, Comair Flight 5191, a Bombardier CL600 2B19 N431CA crashed during takeoff from Bluegrass Airport, Lexington, Kentucky. The flight crew was instructed to take off from runway 22, but instead lined up the airplane on runway 26 and began the takeoff roll. The airplane ran off the end of the runway and impacted the airport perimeter fence, trees, and terrain. The captain, flight attendant, and 47 passengers were killed, and the first officer received serious injuries. The airplane was destroyed by impact forces and post-crash fire. Interview with Steve Fano and Thomas Kelly. In this interview, I asked both gentlemen, who are retired air traffic controllers, how long were they air traffic controllers, with Steve replying 25 plus years and Thomas saying 18 and a half years. I then asked them if they've heard of Comair Flight 5191 and what are their thoughts. Steve replied saying yes, he's heard of it from the news and believes that the pilots should have checked the heading of the compass before takeoff. Thomas replied that he was stationed in Lexington, Kentucky after this event, and based on his understandings, one controller was working that night and was responsible for the radar, clearance, ground control, ATIS, and traffic count. After being cleared for takeoff, the pilot did not check the direction gyro compass and aligned the plane with the incorrect, shorter runway, which led to the accident. He personally believes that it was 8% pilot error and 20% air traffic control error, and even more that it could be a lower percent air traffic control error. Continuing, I asked the gentlemen what would they have done to prevent a situation like that from happening again, in which Steve responded and said he would have bigger runway location signs so they were easily seen by the pilots. And Thomas replied that he would have ensured more than one air traffic controller is always working, no matter the time of day, which was actually the action taken based on the accident that occurred. My thoughts. I personally think that a secondary check as to where the plane was aligned needed to be done by the air traffic controller. However, with that being said, the pilot had the responsibility of following instructions and going to the correct runway. Furthermore, allowing only one air traffic controller to work in a level 7 facility despite the time of day is not wise. A safety concept I would put in place is placement of the runway number on a digital screen in the cockpit for reference in the event there was any miscommunication or misunderstanding via oral communication. Also, I would ensure that at least 3 air traffic controllers are working in a tower regardless of the time of day to ensure maximum efficiency and safety.
See, I need to get on with my life. They don't realize It's when you're dialing 6 numbers just to hang up the phone, driving across town just to see if she's home, waking a friend in the dead of the night just to hear him say it's gonna be alright. When you find the things to do not to fall asleep, 'cause you know she'll be there in your dreams. That's when she's more than a memory. Took a master everything she ever wrote, watched her words go up in smoke.
In the top left-hand corner of this slide, we have an image of the airport diagram of Lexington Bluegrass Airport, which you can see at the bottom right-hand corner of this image. Now, in this image, there are clearly 2 intersecting runways. Now, the runway which has the miniature red planes is the accident runway, which is runway 26, and it clearly says accident path written in red. Now, the longer runway, which is runway 22, has green airplanes on there, green miniature airplanes, which indicate that this was the planned path, as again clearly seen, written in green. Now, to the very bottom of the slide, we have an image of how the plane looked after the crash. To the very right of the slide, we have an image showing the taxi route runway 26, which is in red because it was, again, the accident path. And we have the taxi route of runway 22, which is in green because this was, again, the intended path. In the top left-hand corner of this slide, we have an image of an old theater that has the title of the movie Soul Survivor showing that night at 7:30 p.m., which is a story based on the sole survivor of the Comair flight 5191, the co-pilot, which is the person in the image in the middle of the slide. And then to the bottom right-hand corner, we have an image of the memorial in which they have the birds, which was previously explained in another video in this PowerPoint, showing each life that was lost in this unfortunate plane crash.
5191 crashed during takeoff at Bluegrass Airport, killing nearly everyone on board.
Only 1 person survived while 49 others died that day. LEX 18's Carolina Buchek has more in tonight's big story at 5:30.
Among the trees and the brush, parts of Flight 5191 were found scattered along the ground. These are images that are hard to forget, and for some, difficult to believe it happened 12 years ago.
You know, it really shook me how close to home that could be.
John Pfister stopped by the memorial to remember the 49 lives lost that day. Each one is represented by a bird, and one of these birds is his friend, Pat Smith, who was on that flight on his way to help people recently devastated by a hurricane.
Whatever, he was going down to help people out, and I thought it was, you know, he died doing what he loved to do, and I think that it summarizes Pat Smith.
And of course, each one of these birds represents a person's story. Down here, Jonathan and Scarlett Hooker were newlyweds heading on their honeymoon when the plane crashed. Today, a loved one laid 12 roses, one for each year that they've been gone.
And as flowers lay on the base, people are thankful for a peaceful, quiet spot to pay their respects.
It helps me out a lot to go over here and reflect on what other people have done for other people.
Covering the news in Lexington from the LEX 18 Mobile Newsroom, back to you.